very first International Climate Webinar Series, Industry Blitz. We are jumping straight into a fast 10 minutes with someone who knows how to get things moving. Please welcome Gabe Klein. Gabe recently headed up the US Joint Office of Energy and Transportation, directing a lot of funding for cleaner transportation. Before that, he was the transportation guru in Chicago and DC, responsible for things like those big bikes programs and making our streets more pedestrian friendly. Public, private, and startup. Gabe done it all. Gabe, let's hear what you have to say and share with us today. Welcome.
Thanks, Salima. Thanks for the warm welcome. It's great to be here.
Nice having you. Like I just introduced, we are going to jump directly in our question. You will hear me, but you will have to answer fast. Scooters, saviors or menace of urban transit?
Oh, saviors.
Saviors.
No question. Look, the envelope is small and it moves somebody just like a car, right? At 12 miles per hour through the city.
Great. Self-driving cars, dream or nightmare commute? What do you say?
It all depends on, number one, how good the technology is, and two, how it's deployed. There are companies out there doing a phenomenal job with it and working with cities and have great policy chops. And there are companies that don't, and maybe their technology isn't up to par for urban driving. There's a difference between automated driving on the highway and automated driving in a city.
Okay, let's jump to the third question. Biggest hurdle to sustainable transportation in the next 5 years?
It's a great question. I'm going to answer that with in the situation we're in right now. So I think that there's a lack of focus, meaning there's so much disruption happening right now at the federal level, and it's causing so much uncertainty, both for cities and for states and the business community that fulfills a lot of this work, as well as people, just individuals. So people are having a hard time focusing as much on sustainable transportation versus basic human rights. So I think, think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Unfortunately, sustainable transportation may not be the most important thing when you're operating in a very chaotic environment. And then, of course, the question mark around funding is a big one. And will funding be released or not released? If it's released, then we have money to do things. If not, then you have to rely on public-private partnerships.
Great. Now, Startup City book. Your two-word essence about it?
It's really about serving the public, whether you're in public or private, as fast as humanly possible. So that was more than 2 words. But all right, how about this? Do good, be good. Do good.
Great. Do good, be good. What is the most underutilized transportation technology right now, from your point of view?
Well, you're going to laugh probably, but I would say walking and biking. And walking, you don't think of it as a technology. Some people don't even think of it as a transportation function, but it is. It's the original mode of transportation. 52% of all trips in the US are less than 3 miles. 28% are less than 1 mile. Only 2% of trips are more than 50 miles. But where do we put our money? And on top of that, we have a health and obesity crisis, right? But we avoid walking often, not everybody, but often at all costs. And now, with the advent of the e-scooter and the e-bike, or the regular bike, if we need to go further or faster, a bike or an e-bike makes total sense. You go up to 6 miles, 7 miles, 8 miles, faster than you can in a car in an urban context.
Great, because this is linked to my next question. One quick win the city can implement to improve mobility?
I think putting in protected bike infrastructure and complete sidewalk networks, as well as crosswalks. Those are things that will make people feel safe.
Absolutely. I can relate. I'm not supposed to talk so much, but my daughter, she's young and she's really asking the same question: when we can bike and walk, even in the suburb.
Yeah, and it's not very expensive. You can do it inexpensively and have a huge impact on people's lives.
Absolutely. Going back to cars, what is your worst traffic jam story you want to share with us?
Oh, gosh. I mean, so many. Well, people always say that Washington, D.C. has some of the worst traffic in the country. And I always argue back. I'm like, I don't know. I've lived in the city on and off for 25 years. I don't experience a lot of traffic. It's when you're in the suburbs coming in or whatever that you have challenges. And I will say that in the DC region or the Chicago region where I also lived, if you're at rush hour trying to get in or out of the city, it can be extremely painful. But for me, the worst has been in Los Angeles, trying to get from the airport into the city. Even just last week, traffic was insane. And I looked out my window from the hotel and I saw the freeway was moving considerably slower than the cars on the street grid. So that's when you know the system doesn't work.
Hopefully, we will see this changing slowly but surely, Gabe.
Yes.
What is the future of public transit? Is it trains, buses, or something else? We talked about walking and biking, but I will let you choose between these three.
It's interesting. You know, I worked on a streetcar here in DC. Streetcars made a comeback for a bit. They were this important link that connected neighborhoods. I think bicycle transit systems in the form of bike share have in many ways approximated what streetcars used to do, linking neighborhoods. In terms of whether it's a train or a bus or a streetcar or a bike share system, I think the most important thing is that it works really well. You know, people argue for the bus over the train. I don't care about any of that. Does it go where people want to go? Is it cost effective at the end of the day? And like bike share here in DC, I'm extremely proud of. It costs, or at least at one time, it cost more to operate per bike than any other system in the country. But it was also the most profitable because people used it because it was run so well. So it's not always just about cost. It's about total value of the service. And you can have a very expensive train system, but if it's really heavily utilized, then it works.
Yeah, great. It's mostly about efficiency. How do we make transportation more inclusive then?
Well, I think the great equalizer in transportation is accessibility / access to it and cost. So again, I just gave the Capital Bike Share example. I view that as transit. I'm incredibly proud of it. It uses cutting edge technology, sensors, solar energy, so it doesn't need to be plugged in, GPS and wireless, and a great application to bring a simple and healthy transport system to all residents in the city, or really in the region now here in DC or in New York or in Chicago, right? I also did the Chicago system with my team, and it's very low cost, 26 cents per day here in DC for unlimited riding. You can't beat that. So when you think about access and cost to the consumer, and then return on investment for the city or the region, I do think bike share pretty much takes the cake. I think that it also complements the bus and the train extremely well. And so, going forward, we need to make sure we're providing access cost effectively and prioritizing services that are good for everyone, including those not using them.
Our time is up, but I will love to hear from you. What are your top 3 songs for road trip playlist?
Oh, wow.
Let's
That's
hear
a good one.
and see which kind of music you are listening to.
I mean, I like everything, but I would say I would play probably a combination of like old school stuff, New Order.
Right.
I love old hip hop like Eric B and Rakim, Far Side. I mean, there's so many great groups. And then maybe sprinkle in like a punk song by Big Black or somebody from Chicago.
Oh,
But
really,
yeah,
really eclectic taste in music. It will
absolutely,
be
that's
fun
me.
to have a ride with you on a trip.
Anytime you want to come.
Oh, thank you. Good morning, and welcome to our live international climate webinar series for the North American chapter, focusing on the U.S. clean mobility future. I'm Salima H, Stephen, founder and commissioner, and I will be guiding this session behind the scene. We have a comprehensive agenda for you today, covering essential topics like regulation and technology innovation for heavy-duty fleets, the role of alternative fuels, innovative last-mile delivery solution, and clean school buses, with a particular focus on the East Coast. We'll discuss this in the first part, open the floor for your live question, and then at the end, summarize key insights for our next session in November 13. Please join me in welcoming our lineup of supporters and experts who have made the time to be with us today despite their heavy schedules. Let me introduce first Faisal El Azouzi. He is a principal at Powerpedia, has over 20 years of global experience in climate technology. He has co-founded and held key leadership position in great companies such as Sun Edison. Faisal will be moderating the discussion today with our guests, and I hand the mic over to you, Faisal, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Salima. Hope you hear me fine. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you so much. We're excited about the lineup we have this morning. At the last ICWS meeting in DC, the speakers and participants highlighted topics such as trained workforce, biodiesel growth, battery solutions, and subsidy-free buses. We would love to discuss some of the ideas how states and cities can collaborate to fund clean, heavy-duty vehicles and accelerate the adoption of EVs or low-carbon fuels in urban areas. Today, this morning, we have Matt Doss, who is a distinguished transportation expert. He chairs CUNY's Transportation Research Center, focusing on regulation and technology. He is president of the International Association of Transportation Regulators and former New York City Taxi and Limousine Commission chair. He is a partner at Windows Marks Lane Mittendorf, where he leads the transportation practice group. Good to have you this morning, Matt.
Hi, Faisal. Hi, everybody. Good to see everybody.
Thank you. We also have Alain Steven, who is the founder and CEO of Energy One Solutions International, an international expert in electrical power industry with over 54 years of experience. He has held several executive positions, including former CTO of PJM, and is the former SG of the World Power Grid Association, Go15. Alain is also the primary author of 7 patents in advanced demand response in electricity markets. Bonjour, Alain.
Bonjour. Thank you, Faisal. Good to be here.
Great having you. We also have Lauren Kasner-O'Brien. She is a policy and partnership manager at Empire Clean Cities. She has a master's degree from Columbia University in economic development. She's a former journalist for Bloomberg, PBS, and CNBC. She lobbied for climate legislation in Albany and New York City. She is passionate about clean transportation, environmental justice, and building stakeholder relationships. Great having you, Lauren. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I'm not sure if Antoine with us at the moment, but we will have Antoine from Buffalo. He is a nationally recognized environmental justice leader. He has served as New York State Senator and held various leadership roles, including Executive Director of the Greater Washington Region Clean Cities Coalition and the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. He has been instrumental in promoting green businesses, housing, and diversity initiatives. We'll make sure, I'm not sure if he's on yet, but we have a question for him whenever he pops in. Let's start with Matt and see, considering the global nature of supply chains and manufacturing in the transportation sector, Matt, how do varying national regulations and enforcement mechanisms impact the feasibility and timeline of this transition in practice?
Well, I think, around the world, there's a lot of different issues. In the U.S., I think, politics and, infrastructure and range anxiety in the industries I'm involved in are top of mind, as well as costs. I think, and I love the fact that Gabe mentioned Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Gabe just, I actually wrote an article called Curbtopia, where I use Maslow's hierarchy to describe all the uses of the curb. One of those uses is EVs and mobility hubs, which I think is really something we should be exploring more of with public-private partnerships. I think countries have different issues, right? Our issue is that we were moving forward with charging infrastructure. The Congress and the former president and Gabe's office were very, generous in handing out the NEVI funding, and we were getting along very nicely. But in the industries that I'm involved in, like taxis, light duty, Ubers, and Revels, which is a very prominent player in the New York City market, their issue is primarily cost and range anxiety and the infrastructure, right? So I think companies like Revel actually made it a business model. They used to be a scooter company, and now they have all blue vehicles that are EV Teslas. They have an interesting approach to things, but I think what's been missing is some cities working with the state and the federal government. I would have liked to have seen more public-private partnerships, which I know Gabe was working on until we had a change of administration. But I really think that we need to figure out a way in the U.S. to move the needle forward on electrification by getting municipal agencies and property owners to the table to figure out where to put the charging stations. Because I can tell you that, Revel is building out infrastructure on their property, right? And they're expanding, but that's not going to be enough. Before the CEO of Hertz stepped down, good friend of Gabe and I, Steve Scher, he was on the precipice of actually turning a garage that's around the corner from my law office in near Carnegie Hall into a complete EV charging, panacea. He was going to have city vehicles charging there. He was going to have the Uber drivers take the train or the bus into work and pick up their car at the parking garage in Midtown Manhattan on 56 between 6th and 7th Avenues. It was a great idea, and it kind of fell apart. But the reason why he bought out that entire garage, before Hertz backed away because of all the political issues and concerns being raised before the election, was because the grid is so strong there. if you go 3 to 4 blocks to the east or to the west, it'll take 3 times the amount of time. So I think the energy companies need to be at the table. I know Gabe's office is doing a lot of this work, and I commend him for it. I really think in our industry, it's about maybe coming up with solutions where there could be subsidies with partnerships, first and last mile with public transit, where they can organize mobility hubs at the curb. I think we need to have more smart charging infrastructure, like there's a pilot program going on that DOT is promoting, having different methods and different approaches. I don't think there's a one-size-fit-all approach for our industry. For instance, there's a company called It's Electric. They have a pilot program going on in New York City where they basically don't bypass the grid issues dealing with Con Edison and all the delays that go into getting a fast charging station. And they have level 2 chargers hooked up to a private homeowner's home. And, they tap into the electricity line, they get a spot on the street, and the residential homeowners get a piece of the revenue from the charging. So I think at this vulnerable stage, and I don't want to monopolize the time here, we really need to, Faisal, focus on a reset button here, right? We all know what happened with President Trump coming in. I think a lot of it was politics. I think some of it is going to be redirected into other forms of energy, but I don't think EVs are dead by any stretch of the imagination. Elon Musk, very big donor for President Trump. Elon Musk is not going to want his company to die, and I actually think with all the stuff going on now, I think Trump is actually going to have an EV plan. It's not going to be what it was under the prior administration or when Gabe was there, but it allows us to hit the reset button and figure out what we can do differently, I think, to supplement the situation. And I do believe that blue cities and blue states are going to double down. I don't think the funding is going to dry up. I think there's going to be more of it. It's going to be coming from a different source. But my word of advice to policymakers is to think outside the box, and to have an inclusive net of people that you bring to the table, as opposed to a formal grant structure where you're just looking at paper. For instance, I did some great work with WSP and as a consultant for NYSERDA a couple of years ago. We still haven't issued the report to the legislature, but we got all the stakeholders in the room, light duty, medium duty, heavy duty, and we talked about the issues. I think we need to do more of that, but with real property owners in cities. Unless we bring them to the table, Faisal, and map out a plan for what private property can be used for EVs, let's give them subsidies, let's put them infrastructure there. What public property can be shared with the private sector? We need that in cities because, as Gabe mentioned, it's a challenge. It's not just the grid being taxed, and we need to be looking at things like BYD, where they have battery swapping. I think range anxiety needs to be addressed in our industry. It's real. It's a chicken and egg thing. So at least for the light duty industry, the for-hire industry, we're not there yet. But I think these are the recipes for success.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I appreciate it. You covered many topics and things that we can dive deeper in each one of them. No.
I figured I'd compress it all into one MP3.
No, that was excellent. That was excellent answer to the first question. But I wanted to also introduce Caroline McCullum that joined us. Hi, good morning, Caroline. Caroline serves as the co-director of the New Jersey Clean Cities Coalition. She a statewide nonprofit dedicated to advancing clean transportation solutions. In her role, she oversees the organization's marketing efforts and membership engagement, collaborating with stakeholders on key initiatives such as Empower, Drive Electric New Jersey, and the 95 Zero Emissions Vehicle Corridor. Caroline is driven by a mission to improve regional air quality by promoting alternatives to imported oil that reduce emissions. Outside of work, she finds joy in outdoor adventures with family and friends and indulges in her passion for gardening. Thank you so much, Caroline, for joining us. I know we have Gabe that's maybe in and out. Maybe you can also reintroduce Gabe. Gabe Klein led the U.S. Joint Office of Energy and Transportation, directing significant federal funding for clean transportation. As Transportation Commissioner in Chicago and D.C., he implemented transformative projects like major bike sharing systems and improved pedestrian infrastructure. Gabe brings a unique a blend of public, private, and entrepreneurial experience. Hi again, Gabe. I loved your walking tech and going back to biking and improving overall efficiency. But yeah, great having you again.
Thank you.
Let's take another question here for let's see, Lauren. Knowing that last mile delivery in urban areas is a primary pollution source, clean solutions such as electric and hydrogen medium heavy duty vehicles are gradually adopted. Lauren, what are New York's most promising solutions and current projects for sustainable last mile delivery and transit?
Well, it's a timely question because the last mile delivery industry is growing every day. And we saw the bump really happen during the pandemic, and it hasn't slowed down as consumers grow accustomed to having things delivered. And of course, New York City streets were not built for that level of truck traffic. So we are involved at Empire Clean Cities with a few different projects, and all of them are some sort of public-private partnership to that earlier point of the importance of that. And of course, the Clean Cities Network, our job is to build, almost matchmake different technologies and companies that are supporting alternative fuel and alternative fuel vehicles. So one of the projects I work on that is really exciting related to last mile delivery was supported by funding from the Department of Energy's Vehicle Technology Office. And that is a sustainable last mile delivery that is piloting the use of maritime vessels on what the city is calling the Blue Highway, so reactivating the waterways around New York City. And using micro hubs at landings where electric cargo bikes can then meet the ferry or other maritime vessel with the cargo, pick it up and deliver it on a bike. And so this is an example that the city has been very interested in and really is promising. And if you live in New York City, you will notice that there are more and more Amazon deliveries by electric cargo bike. And the kind of element that we're introducing through this project is combining that with the Blue Highways. The Blue Highways is a really exciting initiative. The New York City Economic Development Corporation is spearheading that with the New York City Department of Transportation, as I mentioned, to activate the waterways throughout New York City. And they're doing that by building micro hubs at different ports around the city. And so we're currently preparing to launch phase 1, which will connect Red Hook, Brooklyn's Pier 11 by IKEA and 3 major Amazon warehouses with Governor's Island. And this will allow us to pilot the program so that we will have a maritime vessel meet the cargo bikes on the Brooklyn side, and then take the cargo over to the island. And on the island, there will be a couple of cargo bikes waiting to make deliveries. Once we prove the technology and the system, we will expand to phase 2, which will connect the South Bronx, Hunts Point market with Lower Manhattan. And so ultimately, the goal is to operationalize this model. And once we are doing that in Lower Manhattan, we hope to then expand throughout the city and really share this model with other dense metro areas that have access to waterways, which are many, big cities in this country and frankly, globally. So this is something I should mention when I say globally, that electric cargo bikes are used much more in many other countries, particularly in Europe and Asia. And so in some ways, we're kind of behind the curve and are trying to catch up. And New York City is really well positioned to do that because of the entrepreneurial spirit, but also because of the density and the way our city is designed around waterways. So we see a ton of potential. It's very exciting, and we are really having fun piloting this project, which again will launch in May.
Awesome. It sounds very exciting, Lauren, and very innovative. Would love to see how this model works out and how we can scale it in other parts of the country. Speaking of innovation and medium heavy duty vehicle transition, I wanted to ask Alain about the emerging trends and innovations in clean heavy duty fleets and how can we encourage their adoption and scale up.
Okay, well, thank you, Faisal. Yeah, well, you hit my hot button here. We're very much involved in the electrification of a Class 8 trucks and trailers. As a matter of fact, we're starting a project at Hunts Point. I hope I can talk more about it in the near future. But talking about medium to heavy duty trucks, if you're adding the numbers, right now the trend is, industry trend is that about 63% of the Class 8 heavy duty trucks are going to be electric somewhere between now and 2045. If you're adding the number, is going to pose some huge issues to the grid. We just find out now that the grid is going to face another challenge, which is to accommodating the development of AI-based data centers. That's one thing. Microchip factories that are being moved back to New York State in particular, that's another challenge. And by the time we electrify the fleets, that's going to be yet another challenge. Every Class 8 truck, electrical Class 8 truck, is going to take about 1 to 1.5 megawatts charge, so that it minimizes the time lost during the refueling, if you wish. So all that is not going to work realistically. Since I would say 2010, I'm a big fan of battery swapping. For those of you who remember, Better Place in California, that was an Israeli company, but Better Place started in California and promoted the swappable batteries for EVs. It didn't work for a lot of good reasons. Lack of standardization, opposition by the car manufacturers, the deployment of the infrastructure, yet another infrastructure. So it didn't work well, but it works very well in China. The technology moved to China, NIO and Cattle in particular. I had the opportunity to sit in one of the NIO cars. They took us through the swapping station, and in less than 1 minute, we had a fully charged battery. That's moving to Europe. Lauren was just talking about us being behind the curve, and this is another area where we're behind the curve. By the time we get on the curve, we're very quick to catch up. But right now we are behind the curve, and my passion here is to help catching up in that area. So there are many reasons why swappable batteries for EVs failed. Okay, and but if you're looking at the Class 8 truck segment, okay, one of the it's a totally different business case, but one of the key elements of Class 8 is that the Class 8 truck is amenable to a standardization of battery swapping. So we're teaming up with an Australian company that is retrofitting Class 8 truck. For $150,000, they will take a diesel truck, replace the diesel engine with electric propulsion system, okay, and mount under the chassis where the fuel tanks normally are. They're mounting receptacles for 500 kilowatt hour batteries, which are swappable. They've got 23 trucks on the road already in southern Australia. It takes 4 minutes to swap a battery. And it doesn't take very fancy technology, it doesn't need robotics. You know, they're using simple forklifts to do the swapping. And to me, that's one of the new technologies that I would like to see moving to the United States. Because now that you have swappable batteries, you have decoupling of the ownership between the truck and the batteries. So you can get your truck retrofitted, and then you can subscribe to a battery swapping service. And the battery swapping service is financially sustainable, because those batteries that are sitting on the shelves, they don't have to be idle. You connect to the grid, you connect to PV where there is PV, and then you basically provide grid services while they're on the shelves. So we're very big on that. Another big thing, battery obsolescence. I'm watching international news, and I'm looking for diversity in the information. And I saw a documentary in Paris. E-bike owners are furious because the battery came to the end of its life. They cannot find a replacement battery. They've got to throw out the bike and in order to replace the battery. So our son wants an e-bike. He's looking at the speed. Well, I'm looking, first thing I look at, can I swap that battery? Is there a market for that? It's the same thing for truck. A truck, Class 8 truck is on the road for 10 to 15 years. You don't want your battery to be obsolete 2 or 3 years from now. Since our Australian partner started in 2019, they have doubled the range of those batteries. So anyway, I don't want to take more time but I'm very much. Oh yeah. Well, actually, I see class equipment from Quebec. Let me put a comment about class equipment. I think class equipment, first of all, you have to know that the government of Quebec has a close partnership with the city of New York. But class equipment in particular has developed a snow plower system for airport in particular, okay? They're using 1 megawatt hour battery packs, okay? 2 per snow plower, because by the time you're plowing, you recharge the other battery pack. And that's a great system, but what do you do with the batteries when it doesn't snow, all right? Well, the thing to do with those batteries is to put them at use in the summer days or otherwise. But that's another example of usefulness of battery swapping, because those batteries can provide other services to the grid and get paid for it. So that lowers your TCO. Okay.
No, absolutely. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, absolutely. This is a very neat example of innovative solutions that will solve both business model issues and interconnection issues. And I agree with you, swappable batteries did not really work out for light duty applications back in the early days with better fleet, with better project, better place. But for fleets, especially with the high power requirement and speed of charging requirement, along with having a specific fleet or set of fleets that we can reuse and recycle the batteries, along with the potential vehicle to grid or storage to grid, revenue streams will definitely help both solve some interconnection issues, grid stability issues, and business model issues, and making it more affordable to transition for the medium heavy duty segment. And speaking of medium heavy duty, I wanted to ask Caroline about the school bus segment, because it's an interesting one that I personally also worked on in the past. Caroline, the adoption of electric school buses is increasing in New York City, as noted at the recent ICWS meeting in DC. Can you please update us on your initiative for clean school buses in New Jersey and the industry's progress in this space? Did we lose Caroline?
Caroline just dropped off when she tried to come on.
Okay.
You can revert the question to someone else, and then we'll bring her on screen the moment she joins.
Yeah, absolutely. We can either take questions from the audience, or I can also. I mean, we heard from Alain, Matt, about the grid interconnection challenges. We can see if others want to chime in here in this.
Yeah.
In this particular. Let's see. Do we have this particular topic? Please do.
Yeah.
Just for a moment, I saw a question in the chat about the type of maritime vessels we're using for this sustainable last mile delivery project. We've been in conversation with a few different maritime vessel providers, and it's most likely we're going to work with the New York City ferry system at first with ferries that do not have passengers. Ultimately, I think to make this a profitable, we would like to operate with the ferries that use that also have passengers. But for this phase 1 pilot, it will be those ferries. And then we're looking into different tug and barge systems, and are in conversation with different maritime engineers to figure out what will make the most sense for phase 2, when we will be really scaling the project at a different, a much bigger size than phase 1, which is between just to Governor's Island.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi. Lauren, I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I think often what's left out in the conversation about EVs is, getting people out of cars and having other, zero emissions modes of transport. And I was very pleased, because I remember telling the mayor when he was running for office, as you indicated, and everybody has acknowledged, that New York City is behind the West Coast and a lot of other places around the world. And they played some decent catch up with this amazing project that you're talking about. And I'm so glad that Empire Cities is involved in it. We at the Bar Association, I held an event with Andrew Kimball, the president of EDC, and Amanda Farias, who and our university is working on a report about the ferry of the future. And a big part of that is not just the freight movement and all the great things that are happening, but we can next level this thing and use this as an alternative to having EVs on the road. I mean, I have my opinion about a lot of different things. Like, I've always felt like London EVs should have been exempted from congestion pricing. There's a lot of more things we can do, but this is a real project that's happening with electric eVTOL flying taxis that are going to go, with Skyport that won the bid. They're going to be going to the airports like they're kind of doing now with Blade, with the heliport on the west side, with quieter, aircraft. There's going to be electric ferries, and electric ferries are a real thing. There's a company called Elixir that launched in Miami. Scandinavia has been using electric ferries for passengers and also for for freight and delivery at the micro hubs. I would love to see not just e-cargo bikes. I'd love to see, like Gabe, in DC we have the delivery bots, right? Why aren't we using delivery bots that are really pedestrians? They're zero emissions. They're popping up all over LA. I think this project, Lauren, is a great opportunity to test a lot of different things. But I really think that the problem with the ferry system, as I see it, is we need to have more like Uber type of on-demand, because the just like the public transit system, where we need to have partnerships with other modes like microtransit, smaller shuttles, and last mile with like taxis and Ubers. The reason we need to do that is because during off-peak hours, we can't afford to have ferries that are sitting empty. There should be smaller vessels, and the EV vessels and can charge on the water place. It's a real thing, So I think the answer here is we need to go beyond vehicles. We need to be looking at getting people off the roads, and this is an exciting project. I'm so glad that your organization's involved in it, and we look forward to at the university working with you on this, because our report next year is going to be coming out on the ferry of the future, and it ties into EVs in a very big way.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm glad you mentioned congestion pricing, because we've been really excited about the timing of this project with congestion pricing, because we feel like we're offering a price competitive alternative to the delivery trucks, heading south of the into the congestion zone. So we see that as a really big opportunity to help offset delivery fees. And also, I'll just mention, in addition to the electric ferry possibilities, we're also trying to support the use of renewable diesel with some of these boats as a drop-in fuel in the interim.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Very exciting stuff.
Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you both. I'm not sure if Caroline, you still have time to address the school bus development in New York City. Good to have you back, Caroline. I understand you had some technical issues, but yeah, if you can share with us a few words about your program and the clean school buses in New Jersey and the overall industry progress.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, it's wonderful. I'm sorry, excuse me. It's wonderful to be here today, and I'm really excited to hear the conversation that's happening around clean transportation, because it's a super important issue. In New Jersey, we've been working on supporting the transition to cleaner transportation, especially around our school buses. We have a variety of different programs, both on the state level from funding support as well as national funding support for clean transportation on electric school buses. And in New Jersey, we're really starting to see some of that traction taking place. We have seen applications for over 200 school buses within the state, and we're up over 20 school buses currently on the streets in New Jersey, operating and supporting school districts and the students in cleaner transportation opportunities for their transition from home to school. And that's been a very welcomed addition to New Jersey's transportation, and being able to showcase some of those different projects is our goal through a variety of different initiatives that we have going on. We have an electric school bus academy that we've been working on navigating through, and are getting close to sharing dates for when that'll be happening, and hope that you can join us in some of those learning opportunities and support opportunities to get more of the school districts involved in this transition and help them navigate through a lot of the challenges that can come with bringing in new technologies into school districts. So I really appreciate the time to be here today, and thank you for the invitation.
No, absolutely, Caroline. Really great to have you here. I'm very passionate about the school bus segment as well, as it's not just addresses our kids and urban environment and pollution reduction, because these diesel buses are pretty impactful once converted, and also because of the V2G potential. Given that school buses have a defined route, defined schedule, it's an interesting use case to electrify, and it's great to see that across the nation, a lot of school districts have been working at transitioning to electric. Let's see if we have some questions from the audience. Salima and Marian, any interesting questions? Go ahead, Matt.
If I could just quickly add in a shout out in light of what Caroline's saying about New Jersey. You know, I don't know if a lot of you have come across the umbrella entity known as Nice Bus, the New York City School Bus Umbrella Services. They're one of my clients at the law firm. I used to represent MV Transit before they sold their school bus operation to the city, and it's a nonprofit. It's headed by Matt Berlin. Matt is a former DOT employee who was in charge of bikes, so he's a big believer in EVs, and they actually managed to be very successful in. I mean, the school bus industry, Faisal, as Carolyn mentioned, is operating in the Stone Ages. I mean, it's amazing. You can't even get air conditioning in some of these buses around the country, right? But they actually have already added, I think, like 25 EVs. They've won grants from NYSERDA, you know, and also from the EPA Clean Bus School program. So I think you're going to see the first fully electric fleet. You know, the company used to be known as Reliant, you know, Bus, and now it's part of this public-private partnership, as Lauren and I were speaking so proudly of. And I really think that New York City is going to jumpstart because of this unique organizational structure. You know, like a lot of bus companies in the motor coach and school bus industry are concerned about the pricing, but Nice Bus is very well positioned because they are part of the government, but operate as a quasi-governmental agency, and they've been able to attract the grants with a level of comfort and pursued it through the political capital that they get from support from DOE and the mayor's office. So I would keep an eye on Nice Bus and what Matt Berlin's doing over there, because honestly, it's the future of school buses. Because if you go to a regular company, unless the government is telling them to do it, or they have secured a grant, they're just not going to do it on their own. It's just the school bus industry has been notoriously not making changes unless they have to by contract. And air conditioning is a human right. You know, there are buses without air conditioning, if you can believe that, still in a lot of different cities, and that's horrendous, and we need to fix that.
Yeah. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. Let's see. Do you have additional questions from the audience that we want to address? Let's see.
Well, Faisal, I would like to address a comment by Dr. Mohammed Barara, talking about stabilizing the network of the future.
Absolutely.
That's a great comment, because there is an aspect of the power grid that is not always discussed enough. But as I said before, the impact of the electrification of everything is going to have a huge impact on the power grid. And building new transmission is not the short-term solution, because it takes about 10 years to build a new transmission line, you know, from start to finish. I've been in the utility industry all my life, and I spent some time at PJM Interconnection as a CTO there. And PJM recognized quite early that school buses, to get back to what Caroline was saying, school buses were a great resource to help stabilizing the grids. And that is quite true, obviously, because the school bus schedules are such that you can recharge the bus when you have too much PV on the grid, okay, which is a problem in California in particular. And the buses are sitting there during the summer. So I would say that school buses are basically the best example of how electric transportation can complement the grid and provide services to the grid. And when you do so, okay, if you participate, like in New York, which we're doing, if you participate jointly in the New York ISO markets and the Con-Edison demand response program and time of day and things like that, you basically lower the TCO of the school bus of the fleet. And one of our early studies showed that we could bring the TCO of a fleet of school buses, including Matt Nisbus, we could bring that after 10 years, we could bring it down to negative, not just below the diesel level, but to negative, because there's just a perfect match with the grid needs. So now when you're talking about swapped batteries, and I think that's what Dr. Barrara was referring to, those batteries are assets to the grid. The grid needs more distributed storage, and this is distributed storage behind the meter. And it's a huge opportunity to lower the cost and at the same time reduce the impact on the charging infrastructure, because we know that the charging infrastructure is not going to be there. It's just not going to be there in time. And that's very true in the state of New York.
Yeah, absolutely. This is exactly why after spending a couple of decades developing renewable energy projects myself, solar storage, and supporting the grid, and seeing how with the increase of renewable energy penetration in a particular grid, you see more and more intermittency and reliability issues. Now also when you compound that with the anticipated load growth with AI data centers and electrification, you see the intersection of both transportation and energy to be a very, very interesting space to solve. And that's why, the initial focus for me in the transition electrification space was school buses, because of the perfect scheduling match, right? Like you mentioned, the excess solar during the day, typically the vehicles are parked. You can shave some of the over generation from solar by storing it into the vehicle. And then you have a longer dwell time that you can do different things at night by managed charging and participating in vehicle to grid programs. So enabling and encouraging market mechanisms that will help add revenue streams to the vehicle owners would definitely is another way to both address the interconnection and utility and grid limitations and reliability issues, along with making the economics of the EV transition more favorable. Yeah, I see. Also, we have another similar question, maybe related, from Mod Energy Solutions, from Monica Walters online. She talks about her mobile off-grid EV charging unit, which I've seen also a number of startups that are innovating in this space. Like you mentioned earlier, also, in addition to battery swapping, there are ideas of mobile charging that you can bring into a particular fleet location, or bring it to the site to charge and bypass the grid altogether. That's one innovative way. It could be maybe a little bit more expensive because of the mobile nature and the scale, but I'm curious if you have any more maybe input on this space, Alain, with the mobile solutions.
Okay. Yeah, I was reading a question. I'm also a big fan of the mobile solutions as a stopgap, as a minimum, as a stopgap. Monica, I'd love to talk to you about this. After that, I was in contact not too long ago with a company in Canada who is doing exactly that. They've got mobile chargers, and they bring the charge where you are instead of you going to the charger that might not exist. Again, there are great synergies there between your solution and the needs for the grid. Same business model as what we're talking about for battery swaps. And so yes, that's an opportunity right there.
Yeah, I also saw the batteries on barges, kind of very complementary. very similar to what Lauren was mentioning as far as the blue highways. I worked on an innovative project as well in New York with a partner out of New York, New Jersey, that we're looking to add basically batteries on barges that can be plugged into the different parts of the grid and charge in one location and discharge in another location. That's also another interesting mobile solution that is uses the blue highways, and also that can also support the grid while electrifying a segment of transportation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm very excited about the blue highway. That's the first time I hear about it, but Lauren, I'd like to speak to you about that later, because we're starting a project right now at Hunts Point, and we're fascinated about the possibility of improving the situation at Hunts Point. Right now there are 15,000 trucks going in and out of Hunts Point every day, in addition to what 1,600 TRUs. There are huge opportunities there, and so we're also very big fans of electric ferry boats. For example, in Seattle, they're moving to all electric ferry boats. So there are so many opportunities, you know, and and too little time.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see, time check. Not sure. I think we might have Antoine joining soon, and you know, we want to talk about also a different type of emission-free solution or reduced emission solution with biodiesel. And also there's hydrogen. I'm not sure if anybody wants to take on maybe or add their input on view on hydrogen fuel for medium heavy duty segment. I'm not sure, Matt, if you run into that in New York, and how, and the feasibility of that in a highly dense area like New York, New Jersey.
Well, it's going to be interesting. I don't know if Gabe left us, but I've always been wondering if they were pursuing some of the work that was done over the years by the Department of Energy. If I remember correctly, before Obama took office, the Bush administration invested billions of dollars in hydrogen fuel cell, and that was at a time when we weren't certain as a country what direction we were going in. I remember having conferences and people were debating, is CNG with T. Boone Pickens the next thing? Is it EVs, plug-ins? Is it hybrids? Is it hydrogen fuel cell? Is it propane? You know, these issues were settled, I think, for the good of the industry, at least knowing what we're doing with electrification. But I think that there's a possibility that alternative sources are going to be looked at beyond just electrification. I think this administration is going to be looking at all these different things. I don't necessarily, you know, disagree that, you know, we should be looking at hydrogen fuel cell. We should be looking at different forms of energy for different modes and different types of vehicles, even clean diesel, because, you know, we're not going to get there as fast as we all want to with, you know, complete zero emissions. So it's better to not go all in and be unrealistic about things over the next 4 years, because that same level of support is not going to be there for this. So we might as well be open to different ideas and together plot a path towards zero emissions, but maybe look at these different alternatives. I could tell you that the industries that I'm involved in are not using hydrogen fuel cells. They don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we were using CNG for a long time, you know, but that kind of faded away. And we had the same problem in the 1990s, you know. The TLC, before I even got there, announced that they were going to, you know, start converting everything to CNG, and the commitments that the utilities made for having the number of fueling stations never materialized, and taxi drivers started operating on their biofuel engines using petroleum, unfortunately, because the lines were around the block and there were only 10 charging stations. So it's all chicken and egg infrastructure. You know, if we can have alternative fuel sources that do not require you know, all of that goes into the infrastructure building in the interim period, whether that be hybrids or biofuel engines like they have in the London black cabs. I just got back from London. You know, the London black cabs have, you know, a petrol option, you know, so that when you start running low on electricity before you recharge, you know, you can actually, you know, not have that range anxiety for our industry, range anxiety is what it's all about. That and the costs. If vehicle rentals, I mean batteries as a service, ever materializes here, like Alan mentioned, BYD and other companies in China and elsewhere, that could be a game changer. But I actually think that maybe having biofuel engines or some type of hybrid in the interim, where you can save money by charging it up overnight. But if you ever get stuck, you don't have to worry about getting stranded on a highway with a passenger. I think that's the biggest concern in the for-hire industry, and the companies are committed to doing it. It's costly, and maybe having a rental vehicle model like they have in New York City. There are companies that the drivers don't even own the vehicles. They come in. There's thousands of vehicles that are operated by companies like Voyager and others and Avis and Hertz have done this. Also for Uber and Lyft around the country. I feel more comfortable having fleets that rent vehicles on the path to success here than individuals. So I think building out not just batteries as a service, but rental vehicles as a service in our industry is the future. Drivers don't have to worry about insurance. We have an insurance crisis in New York City and around the country in our industry. This solves that problem because these are private equity funded entities that have fleets that they could have charging stations like Rebel does on their property. They can buy vehicles en masse and electrify quicker than anybody else. But even they are complaining that it's moving too fast. So, we need to I think it's a great time right now to hit the reset button, re-strategize on what's realistic. And hydrogen fuel cells should be part of the mix. I mean, we spent so much taxpayer dollars, so much money on this years ago. We should at least be testing it and seeing which sectors could benefit from it.
Excellent. Let me give a chance to the audience as well. There's a question from Stanislav. Are we going to electrify U.S. rail? I'm not sure. Maybe Lauren or Caroline, are you familiar with this topic? Rail electrification. We're seeing EU, Japan, doing a lot more in transport electrifying that segment. I'm curious if you have some color on there.
Yeah, I have not heard, at least in this geography, of using wind power for long haul ships. I think you mean like large sailboats by the reference. I'm not sure. That's an interesting idea. As far as wind power, the New York NYSERDA, the New York State Energy and Research Development Authority, was committed and has been committed to developing wind power, but a lot of that is on hold for a variety of reasons, including that most of the projects were in federally permitted waterways. So there are a couple of wind power stations off of Long Island that are operating and providing electricity to the New York City metropolitan area and Long Island. But I haven't heard of that as in terms of maritime. I don't know if anyone else has. And like I mentioned, as far as alternative fuels, we are considering renewable diesel and have talked to a couple of different companies about using renewable diesel in on their vessels. And we're also doing sort of battery swapping with the electric cargo bikes, not the boats.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great question, and I appreciate the question, Stan, and the perspective that you shared, Lauren. On the rail front, I think that what we've seen is that there are a couple new technologies coming into the fold, and some different projects that are in process to help demonstrate rail electrification. I'm not exactly sure of the status on how far those have come along, but some of our former and fellow Clean Cities coordinators have been involved in a variety of different projects on that front. And so be happy to share some more detail on that with you offline.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Carol, maybe since I have you here, maybe you can share a little bit more about the initiative at Empower, Drive Electric New Jersey, and 95 Zero Emission Vehicle Corridor. Just a few words if you have time.
Sure. I'd be happy to share a little bit more perspective. We've got a variety of different projects that we're working on advancing in New Jersey. As you shared, we have our Drive Electric New Jersey project, which is really working on bringing more awareness and opportunity to get people behind the wheel and test drive some of the different vehicles, both on the commercial consumer vehicle as well as the medium heavy duty. We have some different Earth Day events that are coming up that will help, get people comfortable and aware of some new models that are coming out, as well as the Sustainable Jersey Summit, where we'll be doing medium and heavy duty ride and drive. That's just one of the types of programs where we're able to bring more exposure. And I think the more exposure that you give people, the more comfortable they become with the technology, and makes the adoption process a lot easier because it's not a brand new endeavor. So Empower is a workplace charging initiative kind of aimed at doing the same thing, bringing level 2 and up to workplaces to help ease the transition into electric and offer solutions for people who do not have the capability to charge at home, and to create more charging opportunities. And then we have our I-95 corridor project, which is really aiming to meet some of the needs of that medium and heavy duty fleet audience who wants to make the transition to medium and heavy duty zero emissions, but needs that additional support to be able to make the connection points up and down the coast make sense. And so, it's easier to look at a set route that's a back and forth type of route for a medium or heavy duty vehicle. Whereas when you're looking to go between markets, it becomes a more challenging endeavor. So I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit more about some of those projects. But zero emission transportation transitions are really important to us. We've got a bunch of exciting projects. Some of them went offline. We're starting to see them come back as things are starting to settle out with the administration. So it's an exciting time.
Yeah, Faisal, just to add a little bit to what Caroline started to talk about in your question about rail. My law partner, Tony Kosha, is the chairman of Amtrak for many years. He used to run the Port Authority before that. And they've done a lot with electrification. I think over 100 electric trains are on the Northeast Regional and, the Acela line for Amtrak. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they did put out an RFI last year, the agency, to further electrify rail and locomotives in other parts of the country. There's obviously criticism all the time about how, Northeast Regional gets, it gets all the best stuff, right? Because of, it being the most lucrative and there's more people taking Northeast Regional than other parts of the country. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I know there's some crazy talk about privatization and all sorts of weird things going on, but so far Tony's still there, and it might be him and maybe someone from the agency might be a good guest in the future to talk about rail, because I don't think we talk about electric rail that often, and people don't realize that there are still dirty coal burning and diesel engines out there on the rail side, and you just don't talk about it because you don't see it. So it'll be interesting to maybe even have a separate seminar just on rail. We need to talk about all modes.
Absolutely, yeah. We have Norman from the audience here sharing an example in the SF Peninsula where they electrified a rail line. The ridership is not similar to the East Coast, but they are trying here in the West Coast. That could be an interesting segment or a follow-on webinar.
I wanted.
Let's see.
I wanted to just add a couple of things related to Norman's question. One, Empire Clean Cities is currently working on a project with a California-based company, which is called Kruger Transit Consulting. and we're working with them and the MTA to use hydrogen fuel cell technology on 2 bus routes in the Bronx. So we're really excited to test that out. One of the major barriers to that project is that there is a current restriction on the transportation of liquid hydrogen through bridges, over bridges and tunnels in New York City due to safety concerns. So that's one of the challenges that we are looking at, and are hoping through this project to establish some types of protocols for future use of fuel cell technology. And also to your question about other technologies for sustainable cargo, we've been in contact with a company that is using ammonia, and my understanding is that is getting more and more use in the shipping sector, particularly in Louisiana and Texas and some of the southern states. So I've been keeping an eye on that.
Awesome. Thank you, Lauren. Let's see, time check. Salima, how much more time we have for additional questions? Let's see. I think we addressed most of the questions that we have on the chat. Yeah, Norman in the chat sharing about the economics of hydrogen and how the target of $2 to $4 per kilogram was the target, but we're consistently around $10. So in the absence of maybe incentives and government support, the feasibility maybe of hydrogen might be elusive for a bit, but it's good to still keep an eye on such innovations. Let's see, I'm going through the questions here, see if I missed anything. Salima, do we have Antoine joining us, or
we are getting we're trying to get Antoine on the discussion right here, but unfortunately he's having an issue to join us right now. I will propose that we get to our session, final thought and key messages from our guests, Alan, Matt, and Lauren. As a final thought, they want to share with our audience that the audience is waiting for your last words.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you want me to start? Or...
Go ahead.
Maybe Lauren.
Lauren, you want to go first?
Go ahead.
I don't want to monopolize the time here.
I'll go. I can go, and Matt, you can follow, pick up anything I might have missed. I'll say when I think about the transition to clean technology, clean transportation technology, it's there's no silver bullet, and we need to work on all of these technologies to improve them. I appreciate Matt drawing attention to range anxiety and cost. Those are definitely ongoing issues that come up, and I think it's invaluable to have companies like NiceBus. I've been in meetings with them, kind of peer-to-peer meetings, and they'll describe the work they're doing as bushwhacking to pave the way for other school bus companies. So, and that's like the early adopter kind of work, but it's incredibly important. And also, NiceBus is making their data analysis and experience available to other school bus operators, and really has, as a nonprofit organization, a mission behind doing that. And I'd say the other challenge here in New York City, particularly with micromobility, is making sure that we have safe charging and standards for battery safety. I'm personally very interested in the battery recycling possibilities. I think that's really a vital piece of this this technology working in the long run and the medium run, so that as improvements are made and as we invest in research, the old materials aren't put to waste. So, you know, I think that having a circular economy and that constantly being a focus of all these technologies is incredibly important. And Blue Highways is an exciting initiative. We are so happy to be a part of it. And it is exciting because it encompasses so many of these elements, right? There's last mile, there's alternatives to trucking, there's micromobility, there's micro hubs, and this is all happening right now. So it's a very exciting time. And also here in New York City, we still have quite a lot of support from our state government in developing these technologies. So it's a great time to come to New York and build, whether it's hydrogen, whether it's last mile, whether it's remote modular units for energy. I think all of them need to be explored. So I think that's my final thought. And what I often think is we need to be pushing all of these technologies forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. That was nicely done, Lauren. I have very little to add to that. I think we're aligned philosophically on all of that. You know, I think I know who said we're bushwhacking too, or weed whacking. I have an idea who said that. But it's true though. It's you know, the path to electrification, or to zero emissions, really is the more appropriate way to put it, is having an open mind and using this time to experiment, because there's a lot of things we need to do of a multimodal nature along the way to get to where we need to go. And I think rather than have tunnel vision, or just saying this is the only thing we're doing, we need to be open to ideas. We need to support not just the collaboration between the public and the private sector, because look, you can't do anything without the government taking the lead. The government can't get out of the way by just putting grants out there and letting it go to the Wild West. They need to be in control, but they need to be in control to a point where they are collaborating, not telling the private sector what to do. And we need to take those who are North Stars or exemplars that are doing unique things, that are making it their business model, okay, to make money or to, do a public good by committing 100% to electrification. Nice Bus and Matt Berlin are a perfect example of that. Revel is a good example of that. They're in business to make money from electrifying. Those are the types of entities we should be supporting and encouraging. And the blue, not enough is talked about, as Lauren mentioned, about the Blue Highways Hub and how significant this is. This is a mobility hub for goods and passengers that's electrified, and a model for the future, that is being done in New York City of all places. And I have high hopes that it's going to be really a wonderful testing ground for everything, and not just e-cargo bikes, but delivery bots, for flying taxis that are eVTOLs that are electric, right? They're not polluting the environment like helicopters and well, not helicopters, but planes are. And we want to solve problems too. We want to be able for people to affordably get where they need to go. And that is something that is underlying all of this, that the affordability thing we need to spend a lot of time on, but we need to get people at the table. And one person needs to be in charge in each region or each state. I think the governance problem we didn't talk about, but it's real. I mean, Empire Cities does a great job of bringing the players together, right? We need to have someone in the government that's empowered when entities like Clean Cities are working with all these stakeholders, that actually shows strong leadership and gets it done. We have too much disjointed governance in the United States. There's not one TfL like London or Singapore's LTA in charge of telling people what to do. So different agencies may have different agendas, and that we almost need like what Gabe was doing for the federal government, like a zero emission czar that's empowered by the governor and the mayor in each city and state, that actually brings together these folks like NYSERDA was starting to do, and working out deals. You like Miami and South Florida and certain jurisdictions around the country are very good at this. Bringing parking entities, bringing in public-private partnerships, and using land for mobility purposes. I mean, we have a whole new rail system, in the Brightline, in Florida. We should be following the examples of some of the cities that are working with the private sector, not ones that are taking a hands-off approach. And the perfect partners for this are entities like Empire Clean Cities, because they can bridge the gap and give, having worked for government for 20 years, I think it gives comfort to policymakers when they have academic institutions or nonprofits like Clean Cities that are agnostic to making money, right? Kind of bridging the gap between the public and the private sector. So I think, that is a great model. And, whether it's Antoine or Lauren or, the Empire Clean Cities model is a good one. I think it's a good way to bridge the gap, but it's not a substitute for strong leadership coming from the top, because you could have all the great ideas in the world and bring everybody to the table, but if there's not someone pulling the trigger and making a decision that's empowered to do that, then the movement will not move forward the way we would like it to. But I think, look, we're living in an era of Trump. Trump is not going anywhere. He's here for 3 more years, at least 3.5 years. And we need to figure out a way to kind of adjust. And because I do believe that there's an opportunity here for us to hit the reset button, pause, and say, look, we were going a certain direction. That's not the reality anymore. But now it's time to figure out a way that we can work with the administration, but at the same time, further the goals of zero emissions. And there's ways to do that. And I think just having an open mind and experimenting in cities where we have control, in terms of blue cities, I think that's important. And this is not an ideological statement. This is just being pragmatic, regardless of where you sit on this side of the side of this issue. I think it's important to be pragmatic and to deal with the realities politically that you have to deal with. And I think it's a good thing that Elon Musk is aligned with Trump. I think that there's a sign of hope for the EV industry. When Secretary Duffy gets around to making decisions on these issues with Lee Zeldin and others, I'm sure they want to meet environmental goals too, but we need to be cognizant of the politics and use the politics to our advantage. And I think that's a wake up call for folks. And hopefully there'll be more collaboration. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, Matt, thank you so much. Keeping in mind on time. Alain, if you have any few words to share.
Sure. Well, I'd like to basically add to what Lauren was saying. There is not a single solution. We have a whole portfolio of complementary solutions. And again, we've got to be pragmatic about that. About what Matt was saying, I'm going to continue, is that it's not public service versus profitability. I think that working together, we can do both. And, it's got to make sense to everybody from an economic perspective. Okay, the fleet operators have to get their financial sustainability, the building, all the stakeholders need to find their profitability. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. But if we work together, I think it's possible. We need definitely to continue public versus private partnerships. Look, Cape Kennedy today, how it works versus the way it was in 1970. It works. It's profitable. It's safe. So what in the world, and that's my final comment. I know that Salima wants me to stop talking, but we are living in an increasingly interconnected world, electrically speaking, buildings, transportation, and the grid. There is not enough dialogue between the three sectors yet. There is a lot of opportunities. If we start looking at the field across the line, across the silos, and bring system-wide solution, whether we connect the ports to I-95 to Hunts Point, it's all there, it's all possible. We need to talk more. I wish we would have more webinars like this one where we can further interact. Anyway, thank you for having me. Appreciate
Thank you,
that.
Alain. Thank you so much. Yeah, very, very stimulating discussion. A lot of challenges with with challenges come a lot of opportunities. So I'm personally very excited about this space, given because I enjoy solving hard problems, and the intersection of transportation, electricity, and grids, and urban density. All these kind of are very interesting challenges to solve, and I look forward to the innovation both in the technology and the business model. Thank you again, Salima, for organizing this. And any last words you want to share? Closing statement from you.
Yes, thank you. Well, we have to close up the discussion. However, I know our guests, they have so much expertise and information to share with our audience, but unfortunately, we have to get going. I want to thank all of you for taking time to be with us today, our panelists, our audience, our attendees, for naming a few: Norman, Vivian, and Stanislav. They were actively participating, and we are thankful for that. At the International Climate Webinar Series, we are passionate to bring and continue this meaningful discussion, and we are thrilled to announce the 5th discussion on the US clean mobility in Washington, D.C. on November 13, and you are all invited to join us. Please, to get all the information and the updates, follow us on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and until then, I will say from all of us, we wish you a best health and a wonderful week, and see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.